Thank you all for your testimony. Ambassador Pasi, as you know, the Horn of Africa is undergoing potentially tectonic shifts given the possible transitions in Sudan and Ethiopia. That has significant implications for the strategic Red Sea corridor, where the United States has an important set of national security interests. In that vein, let me ask you the following. Does the administration have a comprehensive policy for the Red Sea corridor? And if so, can you discuss with me what it is?
Thank you, sir. We have an approach toward the Red Sea, and that is actually we have engaged with the U.S. Institute for Peace and others in efforts they have had to discuss the Red Sea. We are engaging with our colleagues in the Near East and Near East Asia Bureau because, of course, our interests are not, the Red Sea is not limited just to the Africa Bureau. We also have discussed this with all of our chiefs of mission. We had a chiefs of mission conference in February. I would say that we have an approach. We don't have a formal written document, but we definitely are focused on it. Similarly, we're looking at other issues beyond the Red Sea, like China, and doing the same thing with East Asia Pacific.
But
definitely a focus.
And an approach is not a comprehensive policy. Should we have a comprehensive policy for the Red Sea corridor?
Well, Senator, if I might speak frankly, I think it would be really very good. In the past, the State Department has often, the U.S. government has often looked at countries bilaterally. But, you know, if you're the ambassador to Djibouti, you only care about Djibouti perhaps, but you can't anymore in 2020. We have issues with China or Russia. We're doing a great job, I think, on things like malign influences from Russia, China, other countries, which I don't need to name, you're well familiar with them. But where we could do more, I think, is formalize this and start to think more broadly. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that, and I think we should have a policy. I look forward to working with the State Department to see if we can develop one. What formal mechanisms exist in the State Department to develop and coordinate policy and priorities between the Africa Bureau and the Near East Affairs?
Senator, we interact very regularly on specific issues. For example, we have a special envoy for Sudan, as you know, Ambassador Donald Booth, when he travels to the region, and then he also goes to places like Saudi Arabia and elsewhere. Somebody from Near East Asia travels with him and supports that trip because we realize that Sudan is on the border of Africa and Near East Asia, and there's a lot of dialogue that is important to take place, that must take place not just in Washington and Khartoum, but also in Dubai and other places. Similarly, we're very coordinated on China with our colleagues in the East Asia Pacific area. We meet regularly, we coordinate with our Undersecretary for Political Affairs and others. We even have people who are Chinese experts assigned to our embassies. We have one now, and we're adding two more this year, who are going to be serving in African posts. One will be in Djibouti, one is in Kenya, a third is in West Africa, to help bring us closer together because there was a lot of expertise about these countries that we may not have in the Africa Bureau, but certainly NEA or EAP, our sister bureaus, would have that.
Let me ask you a country-specific question. As you know, in November, serious armed conflict broke out in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region, which pitted federal and allied forces against those of the Tigray People's Liberation Front. And while the full course of that conflict remains unclear, it is but the latest round of violent unrest that has beset the country since 2018 and exacted a serious humanitarian toll on the Ethiopian people. On the floor of the Senate, I've called upon the United States to take urgent diplomatic action to address this escalating conflict. What, in your view, are the drivers of this violence? What political issues have to be addressed in order to bring an end to the ongoing conflicts in Ethiopia and lead to a sustainable peace?
Thank you, sir. We really appreciated your statement. I think that Ethiopia is a country that for many years was ruled by one small group, the Tigray, under the TPLF, the group that you mentioned has been in conflict with the federal government. It's hard to make a transition, I think, where a country was controlled by a small group and have an inclusive process. I think the main issue that, if confirmed, I would stress to my interlocutors in Ethiopia, and I would hope that others in Washington would be raising this view at different levels and through other channels, that the process of democracy can't be about one person. It has to be about the institutions, civil society, all the groups. So despite some groups feeling like they don't have certain rights or privileges, they have to be included in the democratic process. Other issues that are really significant in Ethiopia are lack of ability to own land. Land tenure is a huge issue. Unemployment. Ethiopia has a very significant growth rate, over 6%, and down to about 3.5% now because of COVID, like many countries. But all that success is not reaching average Ethiopians. You know, we've talked about the fact that you can't get in touch with the Tigray region because communications are cut off or don't work. But even every day of the week or every day of the year, communications are a problem with lack of internet and so on. I think economic progress is going to be essential, but not just a high growth rate, but economic progress that really improves the lives of average Ethiopians. A lot of the frustration is about groups that feel like they haven't gotten what they feel they deserve. And there's this lack of inclusiveness, which I think that the Prime Minister welcomed when he first came. He's faced a lot of challenges now with Tigray and with some other groups. I believe that we can help him work toward the democracy that he wants, the democracy that we want, and what is needed in Ethiopia. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have questions for the other nominees, but I see other colleagues. Let me just end, if I may, with one last question to you, Ambassador. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam has been a source of conflict between Egypt, Ethiopia, and others. How do you see, what role do you see the United States? I know the role is played so far. So far hasn't been very, I don't know if we can say it's constructive. What role do you see us playing in order to end up in a peaceful resolution of issues?
Thank you. It is complicated, you're right. It involves Sudan, Egypt, and Ethiopia. We've played largely an observer role, and to date, we have not reached the result that we had hoped for. I think we can encourage the parties, encourage Ethiopia, Sudan, and as well as Egypt to work together. It can't just be done from Addis. It has to be done with all parties to try to get them to see the value. South Africa has taken the lead on hosting meetings, and there have been a number of them. Not just the meetings over several months, but we haven't moved forward. I think ultimately these three countries need to see the value in this for themselves. There's tremendous energy potential, water potential. I mean, it is a win-win for all the countries. I think we can recommend, we can suggest, we can ask other partners in the world who they might listen to help encourage. And I think that's what we can do right now and best do to help move this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.